Robots. They're a thing, aren't they? Strangely though, they seem to be less of a thing now than they were a few decades back. From right back to the start of the 20th century through to the 80s, real robots that could do anything for us seemed to be tantalisingly close. The reality has still yet to meet the hype, the fiction and the hope of these marvellous creations. But the awe of robots still remains in our minds, especially my mind. That electrical thrill of the 80s still feels ever close and as ever exciting as it did then. That's why devices like the SVI 2000 robot arm stick in my mind. Look at that 80s Tron-like box art, it's bloody incredible. Now this thing was manufactured in 1985 by SpectraVideo International, formerly known as SpectraVision, under their Quickshot brand, and was designed to drill right into the core of those fascinated with the rapid pace of robot technology. In the 80s, it seemed anything was and could be possible, so getting your own robotic device was almost essential. Obviously, high price tags, however, meant that few of us experienced these whirring delights, and with SpectraVideo going out of business in 1988, those who had spent years saving up for one were left disappointed. But just check these guys out on the box, they're not disappointed. I have no idea why they're wearing construction hats, but they're loving it nevertheless. We're shown the 5 degrees of robotic movement offered by the arm here, along with some examples on the side, details of attachments, an overview of how to control this industrial looking beast, and various other 80s looking artwork, including some of their other products, such as the parabolic ear and voice changer, all robot related, designed to alter or enhance the human condition. My robot arm cost about £70 and was shipped to me from Germany, where far greater numbers of these were seemingly sold than anywhere else. But then Germany is renowned for its engineering, so you might expect that. The robot arm itself is firmly wedged inside this polystyrene cocoon. I just need to reattach this plastic support, and there she stands. There are a few other bits in the box, such as suction feet for stability and various adapters for the arm itself. Look at this thing, it looks like it's just been removed from a Toyota manufacturing plant, or that factory from the Terminator where our friendly T800 meets its demise. I love it, it's just so very 80s. We need 4 D cells to power it, and then for control purposes we have a couple of options. One involves hooking it up to an 8-bit home micro and programming it. The other is just by plugging 2 standard joysticks into the ports provided. You could buy the robot arm bundled with 2 Quickshot 1 joysticks for this very purpose, or you can just provide your own. Any standard ones will do. Here I've got a Quickshot 1 and a Wiko Boss to orchestrate movements. And for now, Octavius Kitten will be taking control. Suffice to say, she's very excited.
Oh yeah, baby!
But then this is a fricking robot arm, so that's understandable.
Whoa.
Look at it, it's so spinny!
Now, to start with, my particular model had some issues with its forward and backward movement. The arm could go up and down, swivel left to right, rotate the hand and even operate its pincers, which incidentally and cunningly account for the 5th degree of movement advertised. But the lower motor was not operational. A quick disassemble and wangle of a screwdriver to realign and loosen some tight screws did, however, seem to fix things. So we're good to go. Interestingly though, you can see how simple this arm actually is. We've got just a few DC motors connected to some plastic gears, and they're not the most powerful, so the whole device is quite slow and lacking in power, but it's still bloody cool.
Does it work now?
Yep.
Fully armed, the arm can be controlled left to right by moving joystick 1 left and right, and forward and back by pushing up and down. The second joystick controls the robot forearm movement, and what I'll call the wrist movement. Each trigger on the joystick is then used to either open and close the jaw on the 5th axis.
I'm trying to get it to wave, but... Hello!
Hello, robot arm.
It's hello!
It's crap hello. We also get a handy spotlight during this process in case of working in low light conditions. And you know, it's pretty dark and gritty in the 80s robot world, so that makes sense. Okay, we need a project, and what's better than trying to make a cup of tea? After all, it is an art. Octavius is here as the artist of sorts, and for this endeavour, the robot arm shall be her medium. To begin with, we'll need some sugar and a scoop attachment. Let's see if we can get a teaspoon in the cup.
Right.
No!
Right, okay, I think we got it. Oh!
Yeah, we've got some sugar, Yes!
Oh shit!
No! Okay, we need to put... No, we need to go back. Cup's here.
Okay!
No! Yes, keep going. Okay.
Yay!
Yes! Right, we got sugar.
Flawless.
Well, that kind of worked. Next up, we'll need a tea bag. We need scoop it. Have to scoop some tea bags.
Yes.
Keep up. No. Keep going forward.
I'm going.
Now, ideally, we would have used the pincers to pick up the bag, but this robot arm only came with one pincer, which isn't going to be very effective. So we made do, and it kind of worked.
Oh, here we go.
No, that way a bit. Drop. No. Move the hop.
Yay!
Yes. Next up was the boiling water. This time I thought I'd have a dabble. And that's not just because there's a risk of boiling water flying in the air where Octavius is now standing. Oh shit. Here we go, this is it.
The top button. I think it's the right one. There we go.
This is really harder than it looks. How much water have we got?
Like, none. Just tiny drops.
Get the drops in!
Okay, good. Get in a bit more. Get down. It's slowly getting closer to me. We've got nothing. Going up. Keep going up. You've actually got some this time. Yay!
But, you know, after a few attempts, we had a little bit of water. I might have accidentally tipped a bit more in the cup if I'm brutally honest, as, you know, the thought of scalding water flicking into Octavius's eye was causing some slight concern. How about the milk? Well, that was easy enough. You'll note we have a magnet attachment on now as well, and that's mainly for the stirring, and you can actually activate and deactivate the magnet by moving it away and towards the casing. Stirred.
Is that stirred?
Yes, that is stirred. It's not really strong enough to pick up the spoon, but that looks about stirred to me. So, time to try a cup of freshly brewed robotic tea. Robotic tea, the best in the world.
Is it gross?
Yeah. Okay, so we've seen this thing under human control, but how about plugging it into your standard Commodore 64? Well, there were attachments for various computers available at the time. This huge MSX device seems to have been the most abundant, which is understandable given SpectraVideo also made MSX machines. But thankfully Tim Harris of Shareware Plus is making adapters today for the Commodore 64. He was kind enough to send me one, so we can get down to some serious business. We're going to need the lights down low for this. So here's the Datel robot interface. As you can see, we have two 9-pin joystick leads trailing out, and these of course plug into the ports on the robot arm. We also have the Robot 2000 software, and some instructions in German, which are clearly of no help to me. To activate this system of madness, the interface plugs into the Commodore's serial port, the disk goes in the drive, and we're ready to go. Oh, I'd better change the batteries first, because zinc carbons don't last long here. Remember kids, being a cheapskate doesn't pay. And while I'm here, I might as well attach the feet so we can pick up some seriously heavy loads. Rather than a pure command line interface, which many users would have experienced in the 80s using the Rogo programming language, which is actually a lot like Logo, we actually have a startup screen for Robot 2000 by VectorSoft and an actual menu-driven interface, which is nice. I'll just have a sip of tea and decipher this German manual before we get stuck in. Oh! Forgot to make a new bloody cup. Okay, so this time I'm using a joystick to navigate the GUI, and the interface should do the rest. It's taken me a little while to acquaint myself with what's going on here, but essentially we can use this screen to move the arm. Check it out. Using a robot arm through a Commodore 64. It's like a dream come true. Each of these buttons obviously relates to a different action on the arm, and if you know German, you know what they do as well. After working out what's what, I'm now ready to create my first program, and it's incredibly easy. All I need to do is select the programming menu option and record my steps, much like you would with a macro on a word processor or spreadsheet, for example. Now, although I can't get my arm to wash that filthy tea from my mug, I can at least try and get it to pick up this sponge. So first, I'll do it manually, whilst recording the actions. Then save those actions to disk. The program will then reset the arm to the position it started in, and hopefully if I place the sponge where it was before and run the program, it'll repeat the same actions. Unfortunately, it seems to fall a little short each time, but that's okay, given this arm is some 33 years old, I think we can forgive its accuracy. Especially as there are definitely some misaligned cogs going on in the swivel axis. Of course, that aside, the downside of this program is that we can't drive several access joints in unison like we could by hand. Not that I could see anyway. So this program, it's great for running commands on the fly, Perhaps you can get your arm to repeat mundane tasks, or get it to scratch your back. But what if you wanted to create something more complex? Well, using BASIC, we can simply use poke commands to talk to the interface and activate the arm. With this, the world is really your oyster. If we paired the robot arm with other sensors, perhaps that heat sensor I made last year, we could create all sorts of wonder and intrigue, from an automatic waving device to a fully automated tease maid. I can picture it now. So that's the Quickshot SV2000 robot arm from SpectraVideo. It's an amazing piece of 1980s robotica. Maybe it's not the robot we all dreamt of back then, but it's close enough, and it's a shame we didn't see a bigger line of these products spanning into the 90s. In fact, it's a shame we haven't got more products like this today. Even so, I would have absolutely loved to have one of these back then. Thinking up experiments, tests, different brews for it to make, the list is endless. But as it stands for now, I'll probably just leave this on a shelf to marvel at. It's a fun piece of kit, but until I can think of a task where it will be useful, then it's only going to come out when Octavius is back in town and wants to make a rank cup of tea.
No!
In.
In! I'm trying to go in.
Right, easy tip.
I am. Right. Oh.
Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching this video on the robot arm. There's some other videos that may take your fancy here, or give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. In any case, have a great evening.